Hey everybody, this is GGB. Today we're going to be talking about what games are going on today, what games happened yesterday. We're going to go over that stuff, how it impacts the March Madness picture going forward. Before we get into that, I'd like a quick shout out for SES for subscribing to GGB Alternate Channel. Thank you so much for that. 5 subscribers on that one, 19 subscribers on this channel. It's growing, and I'm excited by it. But let's go over what happened yesterday in the Big 12. Oklahoma State played Texas, and now Texas is in a little bit of a predicament. I say a little bit, because the chances are they are not going to be able to pass Oklahoma State. No, it's 100%. They cannot pass Oklahoma State. Best record they can have now is 7-7, and the worst record Oklahoma State can have is 8-7. Now, you can hope, if you're a Texas Tech fan, that Texas loses this game. Then you can control your future going forward, that you can pass Texas and not have to play the first weekend. But Texas Tech lost to Oklahoma State. Oklahoma stays where they're at right now, in 6th place. Yeah. So they don't have to play week 1. They have guaranteed, basically, themselves a spot at not playing week 1. Day 1, which is pretty impressive if you're Oklahoma State. I believe they should have been ranked this week. I believe it was an oversight by the AP, but I picked it to be the upset, biggest upset of the day, 1.5 points for GGB. Now, moving on to the Pac-12, USC played Oregon, basically destroyed Oregon, but as I said before, Colorado was not going to overtake Oregon with a win, so, I mean, that's not a big deal if you're an Oregon fan, although it did help your playoff chances a little bit. You don't really have a lot of opportunities to pick up a quality win down the stretch. You have UCLA on March 3rd, so that's a game to look forward to if you're Oregon to pick up a decent win. You just can't stumble from there on. You have Stanford coming up, and that's a chance to stumble. You don't want to stumble in Stanford on Thursday. Then you have Cal, Arizona, Oregon State also down the stretch. If you lose to one of those, it's going to be a bad look on your resume for getting into the March Madness tournament. So this was a chance to pick up a great win if you're Oregon, and they really kind of failed at it. USC picked up a huge win, keeps them ahead of UCLA, so that's definitely something if you're a USC fan you're excited about. Now, USC does have a little bit of an easier stretch moving forward than UCLA. Actually, UCLA does have the easier stretch. I'm sorry. USC has a little bit of a tougher stretch. You have Colorado and Stanford on the schedule. Utah should be an easy win, but sometimes Utah does give up a fight if you're not expecting it. A lot of people normally don't expect them to give up that big of a fight, but Utah sometimes does. Ask Oregon and UCLA sometimes. So that's definitely interesting. If you look at it, you have UCLA's schedule is actually way easier going down the stretch. You have Utah, so Utah does give people scares sometimes, so you do not want it to necessarily be a do-or-die game in the Utah game, so you definitely need to win that one. Colorado is difficult. Oregon's sometimes difficult. So it's really depending on how you view which one has the easiest schedule down the road, but I bet that March 6th game is going to likely determine who's going to be in the lead in the Pac-12. But moving on to today's games, we have 7 big basketball games today, not to mention the ones that aren't ranked, like if you're a Penn State fan, we are playing tonight. It's definitely interesting. The games today are definitely interesting if you're any of these fans. You got Big 10 basketball, you got ACC basketball, Big 12, Big East, and that's it. It was a whole bunch of Big 12 basketball today, to be honest, though. So, moving forward, we got the Big 10 basketball. Let's go over that real quick. We have Illinois taking on Michigan State. So if you're a Michigan fan, if you're an Ohio State fan, you're a pretty huge Michigan State fan tonight. Michigan would obviously like the wiggle room against Illinois. A little bit of wiggle room, because Illinois is only about 2 games back, and they do play Michigan. So Michigan really only has one opportunity to mess up a little bit down the stretch, and you do play number 9 Iowa on Thursday. So today you want to have a little bit of wiggle room. Ohio State would like the loss, so that would put them at a 12-4 record, and Ohio State was at a 12-5 record, so they'd be a little bit closer. They'd be very close to passing Illinois. Now, if you're a Penn State fan, you'd like Michigan State to lose tonight, then you win. You're 5-11. They're 5-10, but it's very close, and therefore you can look forward to passing them in the future if Penn State picks up the win against Nebraska today. That's a big if, because we lost to Nebraska last time we played them. So if you're a Penn State fan, you're obviously rooting for Illinois tonight. Those are really the only people that have any kind of say in the matter. Actually, that's not true. If you're a Minnesota fan, obviously you're a huge fan of Illinois tonight, because with a win, Michigan State would pass Minnesota, so you don't want that for Minnesota, obviously. You don't want to be stuck where if the season ended today, you'd be playing opening weekend against Nebraska. You don't want to play first day, obviously. You don't want to play on the first day, because there's always a chance someone upsets you, and then you don't have any chance to prove yourself in the tournament. So obviously, you don't want to play first day, and that's a big thing. And that's why, if you're a Minnesota fan, obviously you're rooting you're rooting for Illinois tonight against the Spartans. Now, moving on to the ACC, we have one big game there. We have Georgia Tech traveling to number 16, Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech's favored by 2.5. I didn't see a listed place where this game is going to be played, but I don't know what the heck's going on exactly in this game, because it's really weird. Virginia Tech's only favored by 2.5 points, and I understand it. You can sleep on them a little bit because they are coming back from a decent stretch where they haven't played for 2 weeks. So Hokies have getting their first game they haven't played in 2 weeks. It's very, very impressive. They get to prove themselves against Georgia Tech, who's a decent basketball team. So let's go over what would happen with a win and a loss for each team. Now, obviously, if you're a Virginia Tech fan, you want the win. That would put you at 9-3. Virginia's at 11-3, so you just gotta hope they lose tomorrow against NC State, make it a little bit closer. You really would like to take the 2 spot, and hopefully Florida State messes up somewhere down the stretch, although I don't know if it's very likely. Although they do have some games, one tough game left on their resume with the UNC game on Saturday. Now, the Miami game's likely not going to result in a loss for Florida State, same with the Boston College and Notre Dame game. So really your best chances of the Tar Heels pulling off the upset there. If you're Virginia Tech, obviously you want Virginia Tech to keep winning. You need them to win this game if you're a Hokies fan against Georgia Tech. Now, if you're there's really a Virginia fan, you're obviously rooting for Georgia Tech today. Keep a little bit of buffer zone. Now, if you're a UNC fan, you're rooting for Georgia Tech today because you're 8-5. Virginia Tech with a loss would be 8-4. You could easily take that number 3 spot with a win and another Virginia Tech loss. So obviously, you're a huge Georgia Tech supporter today. Now, with a win, Georgia Tech would move to 8-6, which is pretty impressive, not gonna lie. And they would move past Syracuse, obviously, because they have the same record. And they would move past Clemson with a win. So, obviously, Georgia Tech with a win today could bounce up very high in the ACC standings. So if you're a Georgia Tech fan, obviously you would like a win here. Now, if you're an NC State fan, obviously you're hoping for a Georgia Tech loss, because Georgia Tech loss would put them at 7-7. And if you were able to pull off the upset against Virginia tomorrow, you could move to 7-8, and you'd only be about half a game behind Georgia Tech for taking that spot. Just the same reason as why, if you were an NC State fan, you were kind of rooting for Duke yesterday against Syracuse, and that worked off too. So NC State has a chance moving forward to bump up a decent amount of spots. If they pull off the upset against Virginia, they have 2 games that should be easier down the stretch with Pitt and Notre Dame. Then they play number 16 Virginia Tech, which could be a toughie. But let's say they go 3-1 down the stretch, pull off 1 upset. That's still a 9-9 record and get you to 500. You can easily be ahead of some teams that aren't at 500. Georgia Tech has a not great schedule moving forward, having to play, obviously, number 16 Virginia Tech, but also tough teams in Syracuse and Duke. The Wake Forest game could be easy, but let's say they could go 2-2 down that stretch. They could go 1-3 down that stretch, you want a 1-3 down the stretch if you are NC State. There's a lot of different opportunities, but if you're an NC State fan, obviously you'd like Virginia Tech to win. Syracuse Clemson fans also would like a Virginia Tech win. Now, moving into the Big East, we have one big game today. We have St. John's traveling to number 8 Villanova. And if you actually look at it, again, I said it before, and I'll say it again. With a loss, Villanova's in deep, deep trouble. Creighton will pass them. They've played too many games. Villanova just hasn't played enough games to have a loss and still be good. A loss here would be absolutely devastating. Now, for St. John's, you'd obviously like the win here. A win today will put you 9-8. You could pass UConn. So there's a lot of good things here that come with a win for St. John's. You get a very good win on your resume. Now, with a loss, you fall to 8-9. You're still not going to move behind Providence just quite yet. But Providence does have a game against Xavier tomorrow at 8 o'clock. So there's a chance that they pull off the upset there. They still wouldn't pass you just based on overall record. You have a better overall record, but it would bring Providence very close. If you're a Providence fan, you're a Villanova fan tonight. If you're a Creighton fan, obviously you're a St. John supporter tonight. If you're a UConn fan, you're also going to likely be a Villanova fan tonight. Now, moving on to the Big 12, we have a lot of games in here today. We have number 10 West Virginia traveling to TCU. We have Iowa State traveling to number 2 Baylor. We have number 17 Kansas traveling to number 14 Texas, and we have number 7 Oklahoma traveling to Kansas State. So that's 8/10 of the Big 12's playing tonight. The only 2 teams that aren't playing are the ones that played yesterday in Oklahoma State and Texas Tech. So just talking about it, Baylor obviously is not going to lose the Big 12. Like, there's a 100% chance they win it. They have 3 games left, I guess, so not a 100% chance. They could go 0-3 down that stretch. Oklahoma wins its last 2, puts them at 11-4. I just don't know if that's better than a 9-3 record. I think it might be. It might be a little bit better. So that might be something. So if you're a Baylor fan, don't go 0-3 down the stretch and you're good. Now, there is a little bit of worry if you're a Baylor fan. Normally teams that come back from a long break don't play they don't play well. I'm just going to say it. They don't play extremely well. They don't play like one of the better teams on the court when they play. I'm just going to say it. Normally they don't, but luckily they've drew Iowa State as their first draw. Now, if you convince me 1-8, like if they played Oklahoma, Kansas, West Virginia, Texas, Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, even TCU on their way back, I could see TCU pulling off the huge upset. But just the fact is, I don't see Iowa State being able to do that. But with a win, obviously they stay in first place, and with Iowa State win, they stay in last place. So there's no big moves going to happen here with the win and loss. It's basically to look at the middle, right? Number 17, we have number 10 West Virginia playing TCU, right? So if you're a Texas fan, obviously you're hoping you win tonight. West Virginia loses to TCU. If you're a Texas Tech fan, you're a huge fan of West Virginia tonight. Because weirdly enough, if TCU wins its last 2 games, they go 2-0 down the stretch, and they beat West Virginia tonight. That would be the only big upset they have to pull. They just don't have to lose to Iowa State on Saturday. That should be an easier game for them. If they pull off the huge upset tonight, though, they can move to 5-7, right? And if they win their last game against Iowa State, they can sit at 6-7, right? That's the same record as Texas Tech. So Texas Tech still holds their key to being the 7th team in the Big 12, right? But they still have to play Texas. Texas is a very tough team. So let's say Texas beats them and TCU pulls off the huge upset tonight. TCU could pass Texas Tech. So obviously, if Texas Tech is really want their best interest at heart, they're a huge West Virginia fan tonight, just hoping TCU gets knocked down, and there's no chance TCU can catch up to Texas Tech. Now, that's the West Virginia game. Obviously, if you are a West Virginia fan, you're hoping for an Oklahoma and Kansas loss tonight. You win. You're in 2nd place in the Big 12. Very fast. Very quickly, actually. If you're a Texas fan, you want to beat Kansas, obviously. They play Kansas tonight. They can move to 8-5, obviously hoping for a TCU upset of West Virginia. You can move to 8-5. They'd have a 15-7 record. You had a 14-6 record. I don't know which one's necessarily better. I'm going to go with just West Virginia because they have more games, but I didn't do the math today, so it's likely going to be West Virginia in 4th place, but it would put Texas very close. Then you could hopefully win on Saturday, I believe is when they play Texas Tech, and then you can just hope for West Virginia that they blow it against Kansas. They blow it against Baylor. They still have 2 games left down the stretch, so you can hope they lose against Baylor, and that's just it. I mean, you're not going to hope for a Kansas State upset because that's too much to ask for. If you're an Oklahoma fan, obviously, if you win tonight, you stay in 1st place. With a loss, though, you could fall to 9-5. 9-5 is not exactly where you want to be. You'd fall below Kansas at the very least. You could also fall behind West Virginia if West Virginia was to win this game today against TCU. So Oklahoma obviously doesn't want to lose today. They could lose a lot with a loss. Kansas State could actually gain. It doesn't gain a whole lot with a win. They've already basically locked down that 9 slot. They cannot pass TCU. They can't do anything, really. They don't have a lot of mobility. Means they have zero mobility. So this is just really momentum going into the final, going into the Big 12 tournament. They just really want momentum moving forward. They picked up a huge win against TCU last Saturday. Let's see if they can pull off the huge upset against Oklahoma. That's why the spread's only 10 points, because of Kansas State's improvement over the season. This is definitely not the same team that lost to a Division II team. Now, if you want to lose on the last game, SEC, we have Missouri playing Ole Miss. Now, this is a chance for Ole Miss to pass Missouri, obviously. Huge chance for Ole Miss to be a decent team and move past Missouri. Like, I expected Florida. I didn't even think Missouri was going to be in the top 25 last week, because they have not played well at all. I don't think Tennessee should be, but that's a whole argument. The fact that LSU and Florida aren't, I believe LSU and Florida to be better teams in general than Tennessee and Missouri. But if Ole Miss was able to pull off the upset here, they would move past Missouri, move to a 8-7 record, right? And then you would be sitting in 6th place in the SEC. Now, you can hope then for a Tennessee loss against Vanderbilt tomorrow. It's not likely, but Vanderbilt did put up a fight against Alabama, so who knows. Now, if you're a Kentucky fan, you're obviously hoping for an Ole Miss loss. That way, you can pass Ole Miss. You're in 7th place in the SEC. Well, yeah, 7th place in the SEC, so that's good. If you're a Tennessee fan, I don't know how exactly the tiebreaker would work in the Tennessee-Missouri, because if Missouri does win today against Ole Miss, they'd have an 8-6 overall record, same as 8-6 conference record, 15-6 overall record, same as Tennessee as well. Both of them would have the same in conference and overall record, and if I remember correctly, they split the regular season, so it would be 1-1. There would mean no tiebreaker there. It would be strength of schedule. I don't know who has a better strength of schedule, so we'd have to see. But if you're a Tennessee fan, obviously a fan of Ole Miss tonight. That's basically it. Hey, let's get into who I think is going to win. In GGB's opinion, I think our best chance at seeing an upset tonight is when we have Kansas traveling to number 14 Texas. I know it's a cheap one, it's an easy one to take, but I was expecting to take Texas in this one, if I'm going to be honest. I expect Texas to be ranked lower than Kansas, but I saw the opportunity there, but I also see the opportunity here. You have to realize the opportunity where you have in this series. Even though I love Texas and I do like what they're doing as a program, they've lost a lot of big games. If you look at the game yesterday, they blew a pretty huge lead against West Virginia. Do I think Kansas is as good as West Virginia is right now? I don't think that. But I do think Kansas is a decent basketball team, and I do think they have a chance to pull off the huge upset today here. But hey everybody, this is GGB saying adios amigos and go Jayhawks.